Please be seated. Our preacher this morning is Courtney McKeon. Courtney not only is one of our beloved parishioners, but also is a participant in our diocesan lay preacher program. And as I cautioned the 8 o'clock service this morning, please don't think that I gave her this date just to get out of preaching this really difficult gospel. It was really a coincidence. You done a very good job, so thank you very much.
So my family and I took a trip to Lake Placid a few weeks ago. Just a quick little jaunt, being on a Friday after work and coming back on a Sunday afternoon. We didn't start packing until right before we left. And so it turned into sort of an unfocused frenzy of indiscriminately throwing things into bags and running around like crazy people. During this sporting activity, anything in our house that could make noise was making noise. And somehow the 4 of us, plus our cat, kept ending up in the same single small bit of space and then tripping over each other. In the midst of all this, my older son handed me a pile, I don't want to call it a junk. He handed me a pile of objects. And it included a top hat and a book. And there was some yarn that had been finger knitted into long, thick strands. There was a journal, an unsharpened pencil, and most prominently, there was a large stick from our yard, a branch. So I took the stuff and deposited it on the kitchen table, and then we headed out the door, and I didn't give it a second thought. That is, I didn't give it a second thought until we arrived in Lake Placid in the frigid 10 o'clock hour. And it was then that we realized that Connor wasn't wearing any shoes. Now, Connor often doesn't wear shoes, so that's not so unusual, as he will be the first to tell you he was born in California. He's very proud of this. And so he's very comfortable in his bare feet. But not only was he barefoot, there were no shoes for him anywhere in the car. Not on the floor beneath his seat, not in the luggage, not anywhere. They were back home, on the kitchen table, in a pile of objects. And a weekend of no shoes, no service loomed before us. And so I got a lot of sympathy for the foolish bridesmaids in the parable that we just heard. Those girls had a lot on their plate. They were probably running back and forth and to and fro like crazy people. There was lots of preparations to be made for the wedding banquet, lots of chores, lots of packing, and I'm sure there was lots of family drama because people have not fundamentally changed much in the last 2,000 years, and what would a wedding be without family drama? And finally, it was time to go greet the bridegroom. All of the bridesmaids dutifully gathered up their lamps and went to wait for him. But he didn't come. He was delayed. No cell phones back then, no landline, no telegraph, no runner came with a message. So there was no explanation for the delay or any indication of how long they would be waiting there. The bridesmaids waited, their lamps burning. And as the wait grew longer and longer and longer, all of the bridesmaids, wise and foolish, fell asleep. Finally, at midnight, there was a cry, "Here comes the bridegroom, go meet him!" And it was then that the foolish bridesmaids discovered that their lamps were dimming and they didn't have enough oil to keep them going. Their friends told them that they'd better go to the dealers and buy some extra oil. So they ran and found some sort of a 24-hour oil merchant or something. And then they scurried to the banquet and they knocked on the door, which was closed for some reason, and they shouted, "Lord, Lord, let us in." To which he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. I do not know you. I do not know you? But I prepared and packed and did chores and held your bride's hand during the family drama, and I went out to greet you with my lamp burning brightly. How can you not know me? How is that fair?" banquet. This is a tough, tough story. The vision of God that it presents is so foreign to the God that we know. A God who loves us despite our fragile human nature. A forgiving God. A God who protects us and blesses us and asks only that we love him with all our heart and all our soul and all our mind, and that we love our neighbors as ourselves. A common interpretation of this passage through the years is that there's some indispensable, secret way to prove our devotion to God, and that if we fail to do it, we doom ourselves to eternal hellfire, locked out of Christ's banquet. But I don't believe that's what Jesus wanted us to hear. To me, this is a story about busyness and mindfulness and preparation. What makes the foolish bridesmaids different from the wise ones? Like the wise bridesmaids, the foolish ones were where they were supposed to be, waiting for the groom. Like the wise ones, they fell asleep. Like the wise ones, they awoke with a start, cleared their heads, and set to work trimming their lamps. But unlike the wise ones, they had not come prepared for a longer than expected wait. Somewhere along the way, the wise bridesmaids had taken time to reflect on their role, to focus on their most important task, and to consider what might be required of them in order to keep their lamps shining brightly into the night. The foolish ones had been too caught up in the scurrying and the flurrying and the running to and fro to be mindful about their role or to think ahead about what might be needed. Like the bridesmaids, we all have a lot to do. The other day I got an email from my friend Kristen, who works at a stressful job outside the home and has 4 very young children at home. She emailed me her to-do list, which went like this. Make birthday pancakes, get 4 kids off to school, get to a board meeting, drop off car for service, get to bank, bill 8 hours, lunch meeting, buy birthday dinner ingredients, bake birthday cupcakes, make birthday dinner, wrap birthday presents, celebrate birthday. And although the details of each of our lives differ, the harried spirit of that email probably sounds very familiar to all of us. We're all busy. Our culture prides itself on busy. Busy is demanded of us. We care for our elders and our children and our grandchildren and our pets. We prepare and clean up after meals. We water our plants and tend our yards. We clean our homes, do laundry, go grocery shopping. We go to work, we go to school, we go to meetings. We volunteer, we serve on boards. We communicate with our friends and neighbors and loved ones. We exercise, groom ourselves, groom our human and furry loved ones, get medical care. We study, keep up with the news, figure out how to vote for. We make and answer phone calls. We write and answer emails. We send and read our texts. We pay bills. We worry about paying bills. We dream of getting enough sleep. It can be stressful and overwhelming. Can we do it all? Can we do it all well? Can we do any of it? Where do we start? We start with God. Because while the world gives us many tasks, sometimes so many that we feel that we can't possibly keep up, God gives us only as many as we can handle. The hard part, of course, is figuring out which few things among the cacophony of business are tasks from God. Which are the tasks that require our particular God-given tasks, gifts, our love, our time, our talent? And which are the tasks that can be left undone, or done later, or done by somebody else? Can someone else bake the birthday cupcakes, leaving us time to love the birthday child? Discerning what truly must be done requires us to slow down, even for just a few minutes, to hear the still, small voice of God in the midst of the noisiness of our to-do lists. I think that's what the wise bridesmaids must have done. They must have ducked out the door for a few minutes, taken a breath, and said, God, what have you sent me to do? Keep my lamp burning? Okay. What do I need to accomplish that? maybe some extra oil. Okay. Listening for God doesn't require elaborate, time-consuming rituals. We don't have to scale a mountain and sit in perfect silence for hours on end. Maybe while brushing our teeth, we can pray this prayer from the New Zealand Prayer Book. Jesus, help me decide what best to do, what next to do, or what to do at all. Perhaps while sitting at a red light, we can take a deep breath, clear our heads, and listen for God until the light turns green again. Or maybe, like another busy friend of mine, we can take prayers out in strategic spots around the house so that we can ponder God's will while grabbing for the breakfast cereal. If we can take these brief, mindful moments, it's surprising how clear God's voice can be. For some people, it may sound like an actual voice saying, that paper needs to be finished. The rest can wait. For some people, it may be a nudge in a particular direction. Whatever else happens today, I need to go visit Grandma. For other people, it may be a visual thing, a reordering of the to-do list that they carry in their minds as the important things slide in on top of the less important things. But however His will manifests itself, have no doubt that God will guide us if we make the time to listen. Once we've listened and discerned which few things in the busy deluge are actually God-given tasks, all that is required of us is that we do them thoughtfully and mindfully. It's okay to feel weary. Even the wise bridesmaids fell asleep. But the practice of taking time to listen for God and then carrying out His wishes to the best of our ability can fill us with energy. Listening for God's will amid the busyness that the world throws at us can fill our flasks with oil. Listening for God's will allows us to see what's important in the giant pile of objects. Listening for God's will puts shoes on our feet for the journey, keeps our lamps burning brightly, and flings open the banquet door.